Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Clairview's video, and today we're going to be taking a look at this Nintendo Entertainment System I just picked up. Um, I got a really good deal on this guy at a garage sale because I was told that it would no longer play games. So you stick the game in there and you just get, you know, random crap on the screen. So we're going to open it up and we're going to go ahead and put a new set of pin headers in here and see what that does for us. So let's check it out. Alright everybody, so we have your system all hooked up. The first thing you want to do is test it out, see what's going on. So we got ourselves a game. We'll put them in here. Let's see what we get on our screen. It's just a flashing screen. Alright, now if you noticed, when I stuck Contra into this console, a good way to determine if you need to change your pins or if it's another issue is the amount of force you're met with when you push a game into here. This one, I could easily push the game all the way in. I'm not met with a lot of force at all. It easily slides in. I could easily pull it out, which tells me that the pin header in here is worn out pretty bad. This thing has got some play through the years. So whenever you're putting a game in this, you really want it to be kind of hard to push that game in once you hit that pin section, and you know that's how you know everything's tight in there and you're getting a good connection. That's not the case with this one. So I'm pretty confident that after we switch these pins out, we'll be good to go. So let's go ahead and open it up. Alright guys, so we know we're going to change the pins in this. Let's take a look at what items you're going to be needing to do that. So it's always a good idea to have some paper towels on hand. You need a Phillips head screwdriver. A game bit is not a bad idea to keep around. If anything, you could use this to open and clean your games and your console as well. You're going to need one of these big erasers, and I'll show you what this is good for, but you should always have, if you're buying retro games, keep these guys around. They're really good to have. You need 72 pin connector, and you need some alcohol. Now when you're using alcohol, the higher percentage of alcohol, the better you're going to be. You want to try to use 90 or 70. 90's better, 70's good. If you can't find the 90, sometimes it's hard to find a bottle of the 90. But when you get around to like the 40%, there's too much water in that. You don't want to use that. So high percentage alcohol. All right, let's get everything out the way, and we'll open the system up and get these pin headers changed. All right, so looking at the bottom of your system, you're going to need a Phillips head screwdriver to do this. You're going to have 2 Phillips head screws here. And then you're going to have a Phillips head in each one of these indentation holes. Now, whenever you're taking these screws out, you want to go really slow on the initial break whenever you're taking the tension off. You don't want to really go just ratchet down on this. You want to kind of go slow with some good pressure, and then when it gets loose, you can start hauling ass taking your screw out. The reason for that is these consoles are old. This plastic gets brittle in time, and if you just go in here and use a shitload of force on these screws, you have a really good chance at breaking the screw stud off the plastic in here. And if you do that, you'll have a corner of this system that's not going to want to screw back together good, and that's something you don't want to do. And then you have to get to where you're super gluing your case closed and everything. Whenever you open these, you always kind of take the risk of breaking one of those, even if you're careful. So it's always a good idea to kind of go as slow as you can. In fact, that hole right there is already broken off. I did not know that. So this has been opened already at some point. So that's not that good of a sign. Hopefully we don't run into any major issues inside from something that somebody messed up. So let's get our screws out of here. We have something holding on back here. Let's see. Screw this guy right here. Got your screws out, you can take your lid off. Take a look in here, make sure there's no super dust. We're going to wipe everything down before we put it back together anyway, but it's fairly clean. It does not look clean in here. As you can see right here, you got some bunch of dust and dirt in here. We're going to definitely break out the air compressor and blow this thing off before we put it back together. So first thing you want to do is you have to take these 4 screws off on the side and get this heat shield off of here. You got the 4 screws off on the 2 sides. There's one here on the outside of this bracket that you have to take off, and there's going to be 2 in the rear. Bunch of screws on this shield plate right here, which also they put these big shields in here because they also acted as RF deflectors, where it kind of helps you get a better signal on your coaxial RF connector. Take that guy off. Yeah, that's gross. Definitely got to do some cleaning on that. And you also have to take off your push down low assembly right here. So I'm gonna get the screws off of him. And when you're doing this, always kind of lay your screws out in a pattern to where you know which screws go where when you go to put this back together. Okay, so we're gonna just lift this drawer off with a little plane. that to the side, and that's going to expose your pin connector right here. Now you could just swap this out, or what you really want to do is to take this whole motherboard assembly out so you could clean the pins. So we're gonna pop these headers off. It's kind of a pain in the ass. Let's see. Alright, let's go ahead and just take this board out. It'll be easy to get those headers off. So to take this out, you got to take off this box right here. You got to screw down here. Get this off. And you have a screw right in here next to this heatsink. So take those two off. Come out. Alright. Now your board will be free to lift up. You have some pin headers here. This is your controllers. Go ahead and unplug that. Unplug both controller ports. Go ahead and unplug your power buttons. That gives us a whole board assembly here. In fact, we can go ahead and remove this lower cover right there. Give us a good look at the board. The bottom of the board that was under the heat cover actually looks pretty good. So now that we're open, let's go ahead and wiggle this pin connector off. Yeah, these pins have seen better days. You could see this pin here is pushed down. Looks like what'll happen is some people will come in here with a flathead screwdriver and try to force these pins back up, and that's looks like what we're dealing with here. Some of these pins are all unlevel. So it looks like someone came with a screwdriver and tried to jimmy on them to make this connection work instead of just replacing the headers. So never a good idea. Alright, so got our main board out. Let's go ahead and blow this thing off. I'm going to take this in the other room and blow it off good with the air compressor, and we'll be right back and we'll clean the pins on this motherboard. Alright, we're back. We blew all the dust off this thing, and now what we want to do, when you change the pins on these, you really want to clean your pin headers, just like you would every time you buy a game. You really want to open it up and clean it off. And I'm going to show you guys a little trick that I picked up while I was working in the arcade industry on cleaning these pins, because when you have arcade machines have the same type of pin headers. It doesn't really matter if it's a JAMA or stuff like that. And this is how we used to clean them on the road, especially if they were in ballrooms or some of these areas that have a lot of cigarette smoke. They'll corrode those pins really quick, and then you would get a service call that somebody's Pac-Man stopped working in the middle of the night and you'd have to go deal with it. So you'd always want to clean these good, and the best way to do that is one of these big erasers. So what you want to do is you want to dip the eraser in a little bit of rubbing alcohol and just go to town on these pins. Now you also want to keep some paper towels nearby to clean up everything, all the gunk that's going to come off of here. So dip our eraser, you're just going to start erasing on them. And what it is this eraser is not going to cause enough friction to damage your pins, but it's going to cause enough friction to wipe all of the crap off. So erase it real good, kind of wipe your eraser off a couple of times. You can see it's already kind of turning black. Put a little bit more alcohol on it. Just do it for a good minute. Make sure you get every pin nice and good. You can take your paper towel and wipe off all the crap that you just scraped off of them pins. As you see, they were definitely dirty. Get all the residue off there. Now they're nice and shiny. I don't know if you can see that reflection in the camera lens, and we're gonna do the same for the back side. Kinda, you could see all the black on the edge of the eraser, all the stuff that we washed off of that pin. So we're gonna go ahead and kind of clean our eraser off a little bit. Get us some more alcohol on there and go to town on the back of these pins. And this is the same process I use cleaning the games themselves. Whenever you get to where you're gonna try to keep these pins clean, you know, every time you buy a new cartridge, you really want to clean it, because a lot of they're not really taken care of these days. You know, a lot of stores will just kind of stick them on the outside shelf. Alright, let's wipe off the residue we got off of there, and then we'll go ahead and hit it again. This back side was really bad. This is where the where it had all the dust build up on the actual board. They had a pretty good amount of dirt on these pins right here. And you could also take your paper towel, dip that with a little bit of rubbing alcohol on it, just to kind of make sure you have all the residue and the parts of eraser off of these pins. Go ahead and dry it again. Okay, now we know that our pins are super clean, nice and shiny. You're going to get a good connection in there. So now we'll go ahead and put this thing back together. Alright, you can start with putting your rear shield on, like so. I'm going to go ahead and open up our new pin headers. I'm going to put these on. Alright. Nice and shiny. Okay, and when you're doing these, remember this big box, the wings would go on the bottom, and you want to put this facing into your board. So take that back off the heat shield. Go ahead and line your pins on there and push her on. You're gonna have to use a little bit of force to get that on there, but that's good. You want to use force because you want to have a tight connection on that. So go ahead and get our cover back on. Wipe all the dust off this other shield. Alright, so when you put this back together, you just kind of work in reverse, you know. plug your controller ports back up. Line yourself up, drop it in, make sure none of your wires are in the way of anything. Alright. When they're nice, we're not pinching any wires right here in this section. You want to make sure those wires go around all those screw nuts. Go ahead and want to kind of wipe this guy off. And just work him in here. All right. Now, if we remember right, copper screws went in the rear. And these metal screws went in the front. And just like you did whenever we were taking this apart, you know, you don't have to put a bunch of force on this on these screws whenever you retighten them. You know, you don't want to rip down on them hard, because then again you'll break those screw legs off and then it won't hold your items in. So you really just want to snug everything. You don't want to go super crazy on tightening anything up. Okay, so we're going to tighten up all these screws. The one note I want to say, whenever you're tightening this, before you put it back together, you want to make sure that this drawer is working right. You see mine's a little, it's not wanting to come up. That means it's not aligned properly, it's a little too tight. So you kind of have to play with the screws on this thing to get it working right. You see that? I had it tightened down too much and it wouldn't release the drawer like it was supposed to. So whenever you put these back, you always want to make sure, is it going to lock and release like it's supposed to. That way you're sure that everything's at the right tension. So I'm going to cut this part of the video for now. We'll put this back together to save us a little time, and then we'll come back and test it out. All right, we got our console back together. We're all hooked up. A couple things I forgot to mention. Whenever you're putting this system back together, some people can be tempted to not put all the screws back on the I/O shield that surrounds that main board. I've opened a lot of these up, and there's only 3 screws, or 2 screws even sometimes, holding this shield on top of the motherboard. There's supposed to be 7. So I know it's kind of a pain in the ass to sit there and screw every one of them screws in, but what that does is those shields are basically grounding your motherboard, but it's not hard soldered onto the board itself. So everywhere there's a screw that connects those 2 cases together, there's also ground pads. And how it does, it's designed to sandwich. So when you tighten the screws in, the top and the bottom shield sandwich to those ground pads, and that's what is going to ground your motherboard and everything inside your console. So you really want to put all those back. You don't want to have, kind of iffy ground sections, because then, you're going to have static, and you're not going to have the great picture and stuff. So always put all those screws in. So let's go ahead and test this thing out and see if we made a difference. And you see here a lot of resistance while pushing that cartridge in. And there you go, guys. It's simple as that. Alright guys, so that's it. We saved another NES from the trash dump. Installed some pins. Good to go. System's working fine. Again, a quick way to diagnose if you need to replace the pins on your system is by simply putting a game in it. If you're not met with a good amount of force pushing that game in, chances are your pins will wear out. And you'll read some stuff online where people are trying to convince you to bypass the lockout chip on these systems. That's really not a good idea. There's games that won't play anymore when you bypass that chip and stuff like that. And I don't like doing it. I don't bypass the chip. So if I do, it's going to be um, a last, you know, kind of option deal. If you change the pins, if it's still giving issues, then I would go, okay, maybe this chip's bad. Let's diagnose it and bypass or replace it. Chances are, 9 times out of 10, I will replace the chip with a new chip if I can find one. Because that's the thing; they'll kind of go out of stock here and there, and you won't be able to buy a new chip. And in that case, I would just bypass it. But it's really a last option for me. I don't really do it a whole bunch. I don't recommend it. So anyway, you have new pins in your console. Um, you really want to keep it that way. You want to keep them clean. They'll last a long time. So every time you purchase a game, you want to open the game up, break out your alcohol and your eraser, and clean the pins on every game you purchase, um, regardless where you buy it from. Because I hate to tell you, but a lot of these companies that are reselling, on a large level, that's supposed to be retro game companies, they do not open these games and clean them. They'll take a Q-tip and just dip it in alcohol and rub the fucking pins. That's not cleaning it. That's not doing the shit right. And most of them do it. I open games, from these stores, and they look like complete shit inside. So every time you buy a game, doesn't matter where you buy it from, go ahead, break out your game bit, take the back off, clean the pins correctly, and then you won't have to worry about it. You won't have to clean them pins again. If especially if you're keeping your game in a universal game case or something like that, you're not going to have to clean those pins for a while. So yeah, clean all your games. Keep your system nice and clean on the inside. It'll work for a long time. Also, don't leave a game inside of the NES for a long period of time. Whenever you finish playing, take your game out. Leaving the game in the pin headers
it causes them pin headers to wear out faster. So it's always a good idea to take the game out after you finish playing. Don't leave, you know, your favorite game in the console for months at a time because it will wear those pins out faster. So that's it, guys. I hope I helped somebody out there. Don't be scared to open this up and change these pins out. If you have a console, a NES that's kind of acting up on you, it's not difficult. Watch the video. Just be careful when you're touching stuff, um, and you'll be all right. Change it out. It's super easy to do. Bring your system back to life and enjoy it. So thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe to the channel if you want to. We're gonna do a whole bunch of different stuff here, and thank you guys. I'll catch you on down the road.